Okay, welcome back to our study of Yechezkel. I think the Shnayim LeYom is up to 25, 26, 27. You're starting the other nations, but I'm going to focus on the first 24 chapters, which is all about the rebuke of the Jewish people. And as Jordan just asked me before class began, it seems like he's talking about the Jews in Jerusalem more than he's talking about the Jews in Babel. Remember in chapters 10, like 10, 11, 12, he goes on that Disney ride. I mean, starting from chapter 8. A Disney ride means he's in virtual reality. God takes him in a Disney ride is the best example, where you go in this little thing, you close the door, and then it's as though you're in Yerushalayim. I don't think Yechezkel, he actually traveled to Yerushalayim. It's all everything there is symbolic, but he's sharing his vision. Now, the reason why is simple. Yechezkel, one of the biggest themes we talked about, which is over and over again, is there's nothing Yechezkel can do to stop the Khurban. Yirmiyahu is trying to stop the Khurban. If he convinces the people to put up a white flag to Bavel and not revolt, that can save Jerusalem from being destroyed. Yeah. There's nothing Yechezkel can do about that, and we'll see in a minute. Yechezkel has given up, and he has good reason, because the second they rebel, it's a lost cause. Yechezkel's problem is his colleagues, the false prophets, who are promising the people it's not going to happen, and we're going back to Israel in a couple of years, and the temple will never be destroyed because it's God's temple. How could God's temple be destroyed? And the Jewish people won't be exiled because we're God's people. To the point that the people in Jerusalem are saying, we'll see this today, that the people who got exiled, they're the bad guys, not those rich aristocracy. They're God's punishing them. The fact that we stayed, that shows that we're the greatest. And they're bragging, and Yechezkel has to tell the people, no, you guys are the future of the Jewish people. The people in Jerusalem, they're going to get punished. Now, Yechezkel has to explain to the people why Jerusalem is being destroyed and why it should be destroyed. Because again, nothing Yechezkel can do can stop that. Yechezkel's biggest problem is if he didn't open his mouth and didn't say anything, and the only people they heard were the false prophets saying the temple won't be destroyed and the Babylonians are going to fall. When the Khurban happened, they'd all give up faith in everything. There'd be no recovery, and they'd be like dry bones that they'd give up. Yechezkel has to tell them it can happen, so that when it does happen, he gets credibility. And therefore, God tells him over and over again, that was the first couple of chapters, say this, they're not going to listen, they won't listen, don't worry, but I call it, be a show rabbi. Give a speech every Friday, no one's going to listen to you, but that's why I'm paying you. In fact, we'll bring when we get to, we'll see what chapter is. Chapter 11, we'll see exactly that example, how they treat Yechezkel. They love hearing his speeches and making fun of him. Now, why does he do such crazy things? We explain, because he needs PR. If he just said, a mumbling speech or something like that, or, be good, no one would know about him. You need to do something bombastic to get PR. So everyone's heard him, and then when it does happen, that'll build his credibility. So all the things he's doing in this first 24 chapters, it's in order to build his credibility so he can get his job done after the Khurban happens. So the people in Bavel don't give up hope, but they'll be the future of the Jewish people who are supposed to come back later on. That's why we did the Purim thing last week, which related to that. That's why we jumped into Purim last week in relation to Yechezkel. Plus, it was Erev Purim, so I want to make it meaningful. Now I want to go back to the Shresh Shuddan last week, which you read this week. Now, there's a lot of slogans and parables, mashalim, in Yechezkel, which are really, really neat. So I'm just going to go in order pretty much, and we'll start from a couple classic ones. What do I want to start with? I made a little source sheet here. We're starting chapter 8. Okay? I'll call this, they're saying, this is in this Disney ride. The people are saying, Ein Hashem ro'eh otanu, God doesn't see us, God left the land. Well, we're going to see in a minute, the people are going to make this statement that what leads to their bad behavior? They think, not that they don't believe in God, they've given up on Hashgacha. Why? If God's not protecting us, he's not watching us. So the second God's not helping you, he's not watching you. So I don't have to keep kosher. I can do whatever I want. I can be mean and bad. If God's not watching, there's no schar b'onesh, I'll do what I want. Now, but God wants people to have responsibility, to know that you're responsible for your deeds. So look what happens now in chapter 8. Let me start share my screen in a minute. Yeah. Let's open up chapter 8. I'll just open up a regular Tanakh now. Oh, that's what I wanted to do. We don't need word. We need. Oh, here we go. Posted 10. That's where I got mixed up. We don't need that. We need a Chumash. We need not Leviticus. We need Ezekiel. I'll fix this in a second. So we're going to do now chapters 8 and 9, just the Mashalim. Okay. No, I'm Sefer Yechezkel. That's not good. We need Ezekiel, chapter 8. Okay. Notice in chapter 8, it starts year 6. Remember, the book began in year 5. That's the year the revolt began. In year 6, he has a vision to explain what he saw in year 5. Remember, God's chariot landing in Bavel. What in year 6, he sees why the Shekhinah left Yerushalayim step by step. So in 6th year, etc., God calls him, and he has this vision of God in a fire, very similar to what he had in chapter 1. And God takes him on this sissy ride, remember, grabs him by the hair, and takes him all the way to Yerushalayim, b'marot Elohim. He says it's a Disney ride. It's only in a vision, and he sees what's going on in Yerushalayim. And Kvod Hashem, okay, the same Kvod Hashem that I saw landing in Bavel, that's the Kvod Hashem I see now backwards back in Yerushalayim. Okay, now, and then God tells Yechezkel, okay, look to the north, and he sees what do you call it? He sees this idol worship already in the temple, okay, and then he says, "Father Ben Adam, okay, take a look and see what they're doing, okay." Toivot dolot, the word toiva is things that are abominations to God, things that God is discussing in God's eyes, okay, and their toivot are causing me to leave. I'm leaving. I have to leave my temple because of their behavior, and I'm going to show you all the bad things they're doing, okay. And he has a little peeking hole here. It's like really cute. He puts a little hole in the wall, and he peeks through to what's happening in the temple. Okay, and he makes that down, and then he says, "Look what's happening." And now we get to our thing. What's he see? V'shivim ish misitei Beit Yisrael. It's not by chance. It's 7. Remember the 70 elders. The 70 elders of Israel. One of them, yes, Neo Ben Shaphan. That's the people in Bavel know about him. Is one of them. Each one has his little Torah with him. Got it? And then he says, listen to do you see what they're saying? What they're doing in darkness? Okay. That's why he's speaking through the hole. He's seeing what they're doing behind the scenes. Each one in his own room. Ki omrim, how come they're doing all these bad things? What are they saying? Ein Hashem moreh otanu asab Hashem b'ta'aretz. God doesn't see what we're doing. And that leads to their bad behavior. He's explaining that the people were angry with God because God's not helping them. Oh, God's not helping us. He's not here. We can do whatever we want. Okay. And you'll see ever bigger toivot. He brings on and on. He goes inside and he tells, and tell me if anyone knows where this is from. When we have the story of Achav, he's worse than Yerovam. Remember, the ways of Achav were, we used the same word, Hanakel is like worse than, it was nothing compared to what Yerovam did. It was way worse. Okay. Now, what are they doing wrong? Kimalu haaretz chamas. We're going back to the flood story. Okay, the land is full of iniquity, and they're getting me angry. Okay, and they're putting the branch in their nose. It's another analogy here, another parable. What that means. Yeah. Therefore, he says, "Gamani yasabechema lo tachus enev lo achmo." Okay, they're going to call out to me, and I'm not going to listen. Now, what's he saying? God's angry because of their behavior. Kimalar chamas. That's outside the temple. And that's getting me angry. And when I'm going to bring the punishment, they're going to call out to me. They'll pray to me. I'm not going to listen to the prayer. Not because I don't listen, because they don't deserve my answer. And then it gets a vicious cycle. God doesn't answer the prayers, and they do whatever they want because they're angry with God. That's called lahachis, to get God angry. Then he sees another 6 people. What are they doing? He sees when the Chazal talk about 10 stages of Shekhinah leaving Yerushalayim. Oh, here's our. That's a warning. There's no warning yet, but if there's a warning, that's a 10-minute warning. So we might get an alarm in the middle. If we do, I'll take my computer downstairs. What happened? Wait, Arlene, did you get a warning also, Arlene? I guess so. I guess you have to. Yeah, you have to. You're in loads. So you better go to your miklat. Yeah. Okay. Israel Live. So the Shekhinah goes up, and then he puts this thing. Then he says like this. Here. V'yimar Hashem elayim. Avon Beit Yisrael v'Yehuda gadol me'od me'od. Their sin is very bad. But timalei haaretz damim. V'ir malam muta. There's murder. People don't care about human life. And the city is full of iniquity. Why are they doing all these bad things? Ki amru azav Hashem et haaretz v'ein Hashem ro'eh. And therefore, they think I'm not watching. Therefore, I'm going to watch. Therefore, I'm not going to have rachmanas on them. They do chamas. I won't lachus alem. Okay, lo achmo. I won't have chemla. They get what they deserve. And then again, God leaves to another level. So that was in chapter 11. That was chapter 8 and 9. Now we go to the main one. There's a whole bunch, there's so many of them. Now we'll go to we did that one. That was Hashem. Oh yeah, this is the good one. This is Shompat, chapter 11. Where are we? Wait, share screen. Oh, I messed up. Stop the share. Share. Chumash. Okay. Chapter 11 was to start from the beginning and skip. Chapter 11 goes like this. Okay, again, he's moving from station to station, and God's leaving every time. And he sees again another guy. He sees now Yazio ben Azur. And in his vision, he sees people that the people in Bavel know, but these people are still in Yerushalayim. Okay? Now, ben Adam. These are people doing bad things. They're bad, as President Trump would say. This bad thing. They're giving bad advice. They would say matzat ra in the city. Ha'omrim, what are they saying? What advice are they giving the people? Lo b'karov kama. You have to read this. And remember what Yirmiyahu said in chapter 29? Yirmiyahu told the people in Bavel, build houses in Bavel and settle down because you're not coming back. So in Jerusalem, what are they telling the people? Yirmiyahu's prophecy is it's not going to come soon. Build houses where? In Jerusalem. Why? He has sir v'anachnu basar. See the parable or the thing? That's how I call it a slogan. They're saying, right? The walls of the city are like the pot, and we're the meat. It means the walls of the city will protect us. Nothing, Jerusalem can't be taken. The walls of Jerusalem will protect us. God won't allow Jerusalem to fall, and therefore, as long as we're building up the city of Jerusalem, nothing can go wrong, and that gives them this feeling of strength. And faith, a phony faith in God that He'll help you because I believe in Him. As long as I say He's my God, as long as I say this is a city, this is His temple, and I feed Him and pray to Him, they'll think because God's so great He can save them. God's saying, I hear your prayers, but those sacrifices are meaningless if your behavior outside the temple isn't good. Again, but this saying He has sir v'anachnu basar is going to come up a lot. Right? And then he talks about what's going to happen. It's going to flip around. You're right. You're the meat in the pot, but the pot's going to boil over. L'chein kol amar Hashem, chalechem asher samtem b'tocha, heima habasar v'yasir, v'etchem motzi mitocha. You guys are dead meat, basically. You're the meat in the pot, but you're going to boil over. Okay? And I'm going to bring cherav, I'm going to bring sword upon you, and I'll take you out of there, and I'll punish you, etc. He lo te'echem l'sir, v'atem ti'u b'tocha l'basar. I'm going to punish you for saying this. The slogan is how they understand. Jerusalem will protect us. Okay? Not our deeds will protect us, but rather Jerusalem will protect us. God's saying, no, you need to know why. That I'm a God. Asher b'chukai lo halachtem. That's the tochacha, isn't it? In b'chukotai. B'shpatei lo sitem. And you're acting like the goyim, and therefore, remember, don't act like the goyim in Vayikra. Therefore, I'm going to punish you. Okay. Now, here's another one. This is awesome. Okay, Ben Adam, Achecha Achecha Shen Gulatecha. God's telling Yechezkel, your brethren in Jerusalem. Okay, your people were in exile. V'chol Beit Yisrael kula. I'm sorry. The people in Jerusalem are saying about you. Okay, you people, your community in Bavel, in all the house of Israel. Asher Amru Lahem Yoshvei Yerushalayim. The people in Jerusalem are saying about the people in Muncie, the people exiled. But there's a siren now? Okay, I think we had a siren. There's not a siren? It's not a siren, no. We didn't get a siren.
We had a siren, yes.
You had a siren, but yeah, we just got a warning. I'd hear it if it was. Okay, anyway, saying as follows. What do you call it? What are they saying? The people in Jerusalem are saying about the people in Bavel, Rachakume el Hashem. Okay? The people in Babel, they left God. Why were they exiled? They left God. They're far away from God. Who gets the city? Lanu hitnina haaretz l'morasha. We get the land to Morasha, is to be sovereign. Remember, like in Ben Abtarim, Yerusha thing says they got exiled. They're the bad guys. They're the bad guys who got exiled. We who remain in Jerusalem, we're the good guys. Okay, and therefore, and God telling you, this answers your question for the beginning, Bob. L'chen kol Hashem ki erchakti b'goyim. The reason I sent you away into the nations, the reason I exiled you like years back under Yehoiachin, the reason I scattered you my lands, you'll be like what we learn Beit Knesset from here, but you're a Mikdash Ma'at, but you guys are the future. You'll represent me. The people in Jerusalem are finished. Okay. Therefore, God's saying, I'm going to gather you back from the nations, from all the lands afterwards. You come back to the land of Israel after this is over. And then when you come back, you get rid of all the idol worship. Then I'll give you Lev Echad, Baruch Hadashat Tem B'Kirbechem. It's like Tidim Dun Bet, remember? Lev Tor Brother Elokim, Baruch Nachon Chadish B'Kirbi. Vasiroti Levevim B'Basarchem, Etechem Lebasar. Okay? So that L'man B'Chutai Telechu, Vashim Shpetei Yishmuru. You see all the themes of Vayikra, they're all right here. Again, and the biggest theme of Chumash, V'Li La'am, B'Ani Elohim. That's the Brit of Har Sinai. You're my God. We're your people. You're our boss. Okay. And then that's the last message for them. Then the Kruvim come, and then Kvod Hashem leaves the city, and then brings me to back to Bavel, and that's the vision I had in the beginning of the book. Now God's explaining what He saw in the beginning. Here's what happened, and then I spoke to the people. Everything God showed me. So basically, you see what I mean? He's talking about Jerusalem, so the people know that they're not the future. The people in Bavel are the future. The people in Jerusalem, they're finished. He has to explain to them why, but encourage them, give them strength. You guys are the future of the people. So that was chapter. So that was Hiasir by Nachman Basar. Oh, for the fun of it, that's not so fun. Asar B'Tevet in chapter 24, we flips around. Okay, in the 9th year on Asar B'Tevet, he says, remember, write down this date. This is the day that the siege of Jerusalem begins. Remember, there's a siege around the city. Umeshol et Beit HaMeri. You give its parable, right? Concerning this rebellious people. B'Matem Kol Hashem Sfot Asir. It's called this the trompat thing. Okay, a stuff that basically God tells Yechezkel, take a big pot, put tons of meat inside, let it boil over really big, but boil to the point that it'll boil over and everything gets burnt inside. And basically he's taking the same analogy here. L'chen kol mar Hashem, oy ir adamim, sir asher chalata ba v'chalata lo yatsa mimena, v'tachen techa utzia lo nafal lagoral. Ki dama b'toch haya. You guys are getting punished. Yerushalayim, you guys are all in a pot, but Yerushalayim's going to cook you. You guys are all finished. Okay? So again, he's using back, and he takes that's Kol Hashem, this is the city of bloodshed, etc. Okay? I'm going to make the fire even bigger, like a Medura, like a bonfire, bring more and more fire, etc., etc. He goes on and on about how bad they were and how they're going to be destroyed. Then he talks about the loss of Elut, we learn from here also. He tells Yechezkel's wife's going to die, but you can't sit Shiva because there's no one to visit you because everyone's sitting Shiva. Okay. And then he says that this ends the whole 24 chapters, okay? Is when I take from you, your muzam, your source of strength, which was the temple, Masos Tifartam, Machmad Eniem, it's all referring to the temple, Masan Nafsham, when I take that away from them, and then the refugee from the battle comes and says that the temple was destroyed, on that day, the refugee tells the story that you were right, the temple was destroyed, then that'll open up your mouth, then you could speak, and they'll listen to you, and you'll be a mofet for them, and then they'll know that I was God, and then they'll listen to you. And that ends chapter 24 with the mofet. Now I got to go back now to chapter 16, which is, we read this at the Seder a little bit. Tell Yerushalayim how bad they are, all their toivot, and it's just, he's a parable of a abandoned child coming out, how God saved us in the desert. And I saw you in your blood. And remember these, we read this psukim with the Seder, but again, that's a class in then he goes on and on. Basically, he talks about, he gives a parable of a abandoned child who God takes care of, brings them up, etc., and then she betrays him. Okay, anyway, that's just for general knowledge. Now we're going to do chapter 17. Chapter 17 to review all the politics we saw before. Again, There's a parable about an eagle coming. We don't have time to read the whole parable, but again, it's another parable about a big eagle coming and picking off lips from the top of a tree. You can read the mashal. I'm going to go right to the nibshal because that's a review of everything we did. Okay? And more now the Beit HaMeri. Okay? Go tell this rebellious nation. Don't you know what this means? See, the people didn't understand, so you guys won't understand it either. So we'll just go right to the nibshal. Okay? And more. Hinei ba melech Bavel, Yerushalayim. The king of Bavel is going to come to Jerusalem. Vayikach et malka v'tzarea, vayvei otam ela Bavela. Now, we'll figure out what he's telling. Here's what this represents. The king of the Babylonian king, Nebuchadnezzar, is going to come to Jerusalem, take its king, HaMelech Shala, not the queen, but the Malka, understand? Not the Malka, not the queen, but the king of the city, HaMelech Shala, and the ministers, and bring them to Bavel. Who's that referring to? Which king was taken and exiled? That's Yehoiachin. That's Yehoiachin that happened already. Vayikach mizera melucha, he'll take a child of the from the royal family. That's going to be Matanya, who changed his name to Tzidkiel. He'll take, Matanya was Yoshiel's son. He'll make a covenant with Tzidkiel. To what? He'll make him swear. And he took away all the important people, remember, were exiled. He made the king swear to be, basically have autonomy and no sovereignty, to be a lowly kingdom. Not to boast, not to have, not to raise up arms, etc. What do you call it? Demilitarized, what we call it nowadays. Okay? We cut a deal. I didn't destroy you. We could have wiped out, remember, bad example, we could have wiped out all of Gaza. Listen, we'll leave you as long as you demilitarize, take rid of all your things, and don't rebel again. So Nebuchadnezzar tells Matanya, who became Tzidkiel, you can become king. I'm not going to destroy the city. I took all the other people out. As long as you remain loyal to me, don't rebel, and follow my laws, and don't become haughty. Just the thing. By Imrodbo, what did Tzidkiel do 5 years later? Remember, that was the background to our book, to our study. In the 5th year, Tzidkiel rebels, not listening to Yirmiyahu. He's sending messengers to Egypt for an alliance. The Tetlo Susim Bamrav. Maybe he'll give him B-2 bombers, F-15s, F-22s. Egypt will come and give him horses and chariots to help save them. Okay? Do you think a person like that who breaks the treaty who can get away with this? He can break a treaty and get away with it? You swore in God's name to be subservient to Bavel, and you're going to go and rebel against that? God's swearing in his own name. You broke your treaty, he's going to come and take you and kill you in Babylonia. Okay? And it won't come with a big army, it'll be a piece of cake for him, right? Why? Because Lobach knows Paro is not going to come with his army. Paro promised to help. He's not going to come and help. Okay? Because when the siege comes, Paro won't be there to help you. Okay? And you deserve it. Why? You broke your treaty. You tried to make a treaty with somebody else. You broke your treaty. Okay? God giving you what you deserve, you won't get away with it. Okay? Okay? So because this brit he broke, but I'm going to back on his head, but you get what you deserve. And you'll get caught. Now, I'm just quoting this quickly. Why? Because I remember this from way back, 20, 30 years ago, more than that. When they signed the Oslo Accords, there was all these demonstrations about not giving back to Sinai, breaking the treaty we signed when Israel tried to treaty with Sadat. So Rabbi Mital, all of a sudden, gave it a sikha to yeshiva and said, what do you call it? If the state of Israel signs an international agreement and you break that, right, that's the biggest chil Hashem, bigger chil Hashem than giving back land or anything else. And when he quoted these psukim from Yechezkel, if I'm not mistaken, Rabbi did also, Rabbi said the same thing back then. Because all of us, we were young and all demonstrating, and we didn't want to give the Sinai back, and everyone was against us. That was in us. So that's coming in Camp David. I meant the Camp David Accord. That was Camp David back then. It might have been, but the same thing would apply. But his whole point was, if you sign a treaty international in the name of God, as the Jewish people, breaking an international treaty, there's no greater chil Hashem than that. Now, if they break their treaty, that's something else. You still have to, that's another thing. But once you sign something, you made a treaty, especially when God said to give in to Babel, that made it even stronger. But that was, I just brought them from my memories from real current events compared to 2,000 years ago. Now back to our topic. Let's say was something on the chat real fast. Chat in my mind. Okay, siren. Okay. So I guess we didn't get the siren here. We're okay. God likes Acțion. Where are we? It's the pot and we're the meat inside. The laws of the gush. Now back to now chapter 17. That was chapter 7. That was 17. That was 16. That was 17. Chapter 18 is all the good stuff. We have to get here, and then we have to get to chapter 33. Chapter 18 is clearly a mashal, as he says so. The chapter 18 is famous. Chapter 18. Okay. Okay. This is speaking of mashals, of parables. You can't miss this one. Ma lechem atem moshlim et hamashal hazeh al admat Yisrael lemor avot uchlu boser v'shnei b'im tikena. The people have this is mamash a slogan. What they're saying? When God's punishing them, remember when we studied this, the Gzar Din of Churban, the decree of destruction, came in the time of Menachem. And what the people in Yerushalayim think, we're being punished for the sins of Menachem. So what they're saying now, our parents ate sour grapes and our teeth spit them out. It's a slogan saying it's not fair what God's doing to us. Right? It doesn't make sense that we're paying the price for our parents' sins, because they seem to understand from Yirmiyahu, because Yirmiyahu will say, we said that you're being punished for the sins of Menachem. Now, what it really means was the Gzar Din of the decree of Churban was because of Menachem. Yoshiahu's tshuva put it off for a little bit, but it's still hanging over you. If you go back to your old ways again, I'm not going to give you another chance. So you're not being punished because of the sins of Menachem, but because sins of Menachem, God's using din and not rachamim. I'll try to explain that. I'm trying to explain what Yirmiyahu meant. When Yirmiyahu says that you're being punished for the sins of Menachem, he's saying the decree of Churban happened in the time of Menachem because in the time of Menachem, God said, I've been warning you and warning you and warning you. You haven't listened. I have to bring a Churban. I have to punish you. Now, Yoshiahu does tremendous tshuva and stops the punishment from Ashur. The Ashur from punishment was stopped at the last minute. Menashe returns, etc. But Yoshiahu does great recovery and builds up the country again. And then they continue in the ways of Yoshiahu. We could have saved things. Yoshiahu makes a big break, the big Pesach. Yoakim goes back on his bad ways. Maybe not as bad as Menashe, but bad enough. They pray to God when things go bad, but their behavior is not good enough to get God's rachamim, to get His mercy. What I'm trying to explain is, usually when we pray to God, even though we're not deserving of His help, He'll help us because of midat rachamim, because of His mercy, with the hope that if He gives us mercy, we'll learn from ways and we'll do real tshuva. But if over and over again, when God gives us a break, right, and we go back to our bad ways again, if every single time we pray, God uses mercy and gives us another chance, and we never get punished, what conclusion will people reach? All you need to do is pray, but you don't have to fix your ways. So God says 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, I've been giving you rachamim over and over again, but there's a point I can't do rachamim anymore. And what Yirmiyahu was really saying was, the reason I'm not having mercy on you and giving you another chance is because of your bad behavior. The reason why you're about to be punished is because of the decree of Gzar Din was because of what Menashe did. I'm not giving you guys another chance. I'm punishing you for a misdemeanor as opposed to a felony because of there's no more, no more midat rachamim, because they've been repeating these sins over and over again. So basically saying, you guys are saying it's not fair what's happening to us because, hey, they think we're praying to you. It's not fair that we're being punished for what Menashe did. We think we deserve your help. And God's saying you don't deserve my help. You won't have this mashal anymore. Why? Everyone belongs to me, and and then he gives this big mashal. This is his key line of what's called schar v'onesh. Now, in academia, people take this and say, he says, right? But people like to say in academia, as Yechezkel comes up with this whole idea, the first one, the idea of individual schar v'onesh. where the claim is in the Bible only talks about group reward and punishment. That seems to be pshat and chumash. A reward and punishment is at the group level, but there's no individual reward and punishment. And Yechezkel is machadesh. He comes up with this idea that there's reward and punishment at the individual level. You can read that in Ekidimah. This is the big thing. I disagree with that. So Chazal disagree with it as well. But I'm trying to explain, because God's saying there's always reward and punishment for the individual. Chumash talks about reward and punishment for the nation, because the topic of Chumash is the nation. And the reward and punishment God gives, rain and war, those are national punishments caused by national sin. Between God and individual man, that's a different story, but Chumash doesn't deal with that. Now, what's happening though, once we go into exile, right, there's no more national punishment because we're not a nation anymore. And we default to individual. When you're a nation and it's your country, so when God holds back the rain, it's a national punishment. If you're living in exile among other nations, so God can't use rain and more things like that to punish you because you're under another nation. He can only punish you individually. Right? That's in Mashal, leave that alone for now, but I'm just talking about the Mashal. Now, his definition of tzedek mishpat is key, because remember back with Avram Avinu and Stone, where God explains to Avram, the reason I chose you was to do tzedek mishpat. Remember 18:18 in Chumash before? And God told Avram, the reason I chose you was to command your children and their children to follow the ways of God, doing tzedek mishpat. That thing we saw in Yiriyah over and over again. Now he gives explanation what that is. Ish ki tzaddik, v'asem mishpat v'tzedakah. That's the good guy. Now he gives examples of what's mishpat and tzedakah. El rim lo achal, that's too complicated for now what he did wrong, but something about keeping kosher, okay? Davlo is like something about idol worship, okay? And then the rest are simple. But esherei lo timeh, that's the Ten Commandments. Velisheni dal lo yikrav, that's being a little more machmir, not other people's wife, but with your own wife. Bish lo yaneh, business, don't cheat people in business. Chavlato chav yashiv, if he has a pledge, he gives it back to him if he needs it. Ksela lo gazal, he didn't steal. Lachmol, he gives bread to the poor, gives clothing for those in need. Right? He lends money without taking interest. He holds back from doing any iniquity. He does justice with truth, etc., between his fellow man. He follows my laws. He keeps his mind to the emet. He's a tzaddik, he'll be alive. We have a beautiful explanation of what's tzaddik and mishpat. That's all. About good behavior. A whole wide range of things, from not being an evil person to being a good person to being an excellent person. Got it? We go for the worst things to being a tzaddik. Very similar to Pashat Mishpatim. To this Mr. Tzaddik had a son who went off the derech, Ben Paritz, Shovech Dam Masa'ach Ve'echad Ve'ele, okay? Who had koil lo asa, okay? He does all these bad things. Eteshreil Timei, Ani Ve'avion Hona, he cheated the poor people, he stole, etc. He lent money with interest, etc. Didn't do things. He does all these toivot, he'll die, okay? And that bad guy who have a kid, he sees all the bad things that happen to his father, okay? He doesn't want to do them, and then he becomes a tzaddik. Then what do you call it? He goes back, he does, therefore, Aviv, ki yashak oshek gazal gezel ach, tasher lo tavasa b'toch hamav hinei he'll die for sin, okay? And then, the tzaddik will give each person, basically not punished for your parents, only for what you do, and reward for you, okay? V'martem, madua lo nasa ben bavona av, v'ben mishpat tzedakah v'kutei shamar. Why didn't the son suffer for the sin of his father? Because the son did mishpat and tzedakah. The idea is that you can always, the second someone feels that there's a gzar din and nothing you can do about it, you give up on doing anything. Remember the same idea before about God's not watching? God's always watching, and there's still a need to do tzedek and mishpat, even though there's a gzar din and other people being punished. There's still, you can always do mishpat and tzedakah, and that can always save you and can save your community if you get them others to do that. So that's his whole mashal he gives with okay. And the people were saying, Lo yitachen derech Hashem, shimona beit Yisrael darchai lo yitachen, halo tachen lo yitachenu. You don't like the ways of God, God doesn't like your ways. Okay? Because when a tzaddik goes back from his ways, okay, he'll be punished for his own sins. And as Rasha who goes back from his evil and does mishpat and tzedakah, he can save himself. Okay? And then he says again, Beit Yisrael is saying, Lo yitachen derech Hashem, v'adrachai lo yitachenu, Beit Yisrael lo darchem lo yitachen. Lochen ish kedarchav mishpot otchem, Beit Yisrael num Hashem, shuv yeshivut mikol p'shtechem lo yidachem l'michshol. His main thing, he doesn't want the people to give up hope in Bavel of being good and kind, etc. The people are saying, Azav Hashem et haaretz, God's not watching, He doesn't see us. God's saying it's not fair the way God's judging us, etc. The second you're angry with God, you don't care anymore. Yechezkel has to tell the people, you continue, even though you're in Bavel, even though you're on your own, even though you're not part of a community anymore, you're in a different nation, and even though other people are being punished and God's not answering prayer, you're still responsible for your deeds, and you can still fix your ways, and God can be good to you. Okay, and then the famous line we have in davening, "Ki lo achpotz b'mot hamet, num Hashem ki v'shuva v'darko ra v'chaya." Remember the thing that God doesn't want to punish people, wants us to do good, but He'll bring death as a punishment for evil. So that's one more mashal, and then now we end with chapter 33 down. This is next week's thing, but 33 is the best up. I mean, it's a great ending for Yechezkel. Okay. This this is the background for Rosh Hashanah davening, pretty much. He gives another parable. Remember, we're doing mashals and slogans in Yechezkel. Now, chapter 33, remember, chapters 25 to 32 are about the other nations. For some reason, right before he gets to the nevuot of Geulah, of Nechama, of return, I'll bring you back, etc., he brings in chapter 33, it's called Nevuot HaTzofeh. Tzofeh is the guard person, the watchman, watching the city from an outside attack. Next week, we'll talk about the Nevuot of the other nations and the Mikdash. So he says as follows. This in the Mashal is nice and simple. The watchman, there's a city that has a tower guarding the city, and if there's a foreign army coming, it's the job of the watchman to blow a warning signal, like we just had one, to be ready to call up the defense or go to either bear arms or hide or whatever you have to do if you're being attacked. It says, Ben Adam, tell the people of your nation, saying, a land, first thing God says is amazing. A land, if there's a war, God's bringing the war. Don't think war's happening by chance. If God brings war in your country, it's a wake-up call. You're doing something wrong. You have to do tshuva. What you're doing wrong, ask your local rabbi. Ask yourself. Or come and pray and ask God, try to figure out what you're doing wrong. That's the watchman. It's good, okay? Now, this watchman, he saw the missile coming from land, and he blows the siren, v'takab shofar, and he warned the people. Okay? The person heard the warning, it called shofar. V'lo he didn't go to the couldn't read a barak today. Understand? The warning was made, the siren went off, but the person didn't go to the shelter, not it? And the bomb hits, okay? The Malbro show, he's responsible for what happened to him because he didn't listen to the warning. At Kol Shar Shama, he heard the shofar blowing, okay? He wasn't careful. He's responsible because he was warned. It's his responsibility. Hu nizan of shomilet, okay? But the person, so he's saying basically that the watchman's responsible for giving the siren, and the person doesn't hear the siren. I mean, the person who hears the siren and doesn't take action, he'll get his punishment. Now that's what shofar blowing is supposed to be on Rosh Hashanah. Remember that God's warning us to do tshuva before the rainy season comes, and it'll be too late if we don't do tshuva beforehand. Okay. Now the second case, if the watchman sees the missile coming and doesn't blow the siren, shofar, okay, the people aren't careful because they didn't hear it coming, and the missiles come, or the sword comes, and people die. The watchman is responsible for what happened to the people. But you're responsible for that's basically the leadership of the watchman. I made you a sofeh, and your job is to warn them. But I told the Rasha, not tumat, okay? Because if you don't warn the people, you're the watchman, if you don't warn the people, you're responsible if they don't do tshuva. If you warn them, you did your job. If they sin, that's their problem. Okay? Basically saying, It's your job to warn, whether they listen or not, but it's your job. And if you don't warn them, then you're responsible for what happens. It's basically a message to the leadership of now. Then he says, well, V'ata ben Adam, Amor Beit Yisrael. Kein amartem, here's another slogan they're saying, the more. Keep sha'inu v'chatatenu aleinu, ubam anachnu makim ve'ech nichya. Right? The people are saying, we've sinned, nothing we can do about it. How can we live? Okay? Amar lehem chayani nu Hashem, im echpos b'mot harasha, im shuv mitarashem mitarko v'chaya. That's what we call it. Shuvu shuvu mitarchem ha'ra'im, lama temutu Beit Yisrael. This is really a shir for Elosman, but tons of Rosh Hashanah davening and slichot is from this parak. Okay? V'ata ben Adam emor b'nei amcha, tzidkat hatzadik, lo yetze lenu b'yom pisho, no matter how big a tzaddik you were, once you sin, you get punished. Prishat harasha lo yikasher ba b'yom shubam b'rosho, v'seg lo yichal l'kol ba b'yom chatoto. Barmei tzadik cho yichya, u'betapet tzidka v'sa'ava. In other words, you can never be too good that you can't do evil, and you can't do so bad you can't do tshuva. People think I'm a lost cause. Got the idea? It says there's always room for tshuva. There's no matter how good you are, you can always go astray. No matter how bad you are, you can always do tshuva. And that's his big message here in chapter 18. Now, what did it begin with? Okay, and then people were saying like before, Lo yitachen derech Hashem, ish k'darcha v'shpot etchem beit Hashem. Right? People arguing with God's ways. Now, here now one more analogy. Ben Adam. Yoshvei acharvot eilu ad bat Yisrael omrim lemor. Echari Avraham v'yirash et haaretz v'anachnu rabim lanu niat b'morosha. Nebuchadnezzar already came and destroyed and took over the land under before Galut Yoachin. Remember, he exiled Yoachin. He took over the city. The city's in rubble, but he didn't destroy the city. He didn't destroy the temple. He left some people behind. But there's a small group that had a setback. What are they saying? Oh, you think it's so bad? Avram was only one person, right? He was able to yorish the land. We're a lot of people. We can recover. Got it? The people are saying, we're not wiped out. We'll survive all this. We can overcome it. Okay? And then God tells him, you think you can survive this? Okay? The way you're acting? You're going to eat al dam be'nechem tisogel lechem v'dam tishpechu b'aretz tirashu. Okay? You really think you're worthy of being sovereign in the land and getting your land back with the way you're acting? And he gives all the things you're doing, your toivot, etc. Sitting with other people's wives, etc. Because you defiled the land, but it's a question of art, and you think you can possess the land? Okay? And he says, he goes on, again, another nevuah that the land of Israel is going to be wiped out because of your bad behavior. Okay, now, here's the show rabbi. Here. V'ata ben Adam. B'nei amcha anidbarim by etzal kirot. Your what do you call it? Your people in your shul? What are the people in the shul called to the rabbi? He's the clergy.
Congregants. Congregation.
Your congregants, yeah. Your congregants love coming to your speeches. Okay? So they're coming by the walls. They would say to one another, let's go hear the rabbi's speech. Let's go to the shul and hear the rabbi. Let's see what he's got to say today. You understand? They want to hear the rabbi's speech. They love making fun of the rabbi. And I don't think it ever happens nowadays, but some people they love to go to shul and just to make fun of what the rabbi said. Now, okay. So all these people are going to come to you, like you're a big show in town, me. They'll hear what you're saying. Right? They love coming to hear your speeches, but they're not going to listen to you. Okay? It's like a love song. Remember Nugav? Ugav is like a harp or something. Shir Agavim is like a love song. So he says, your speeches, they love listening to it. It's they like listening to music. Okay? They follow their bad ways. They do betza. They covet, etc. They go bad, all the bad business practices, everything bad. They love hearing the rabbi's speech. They don't listen to him, but they love hearing his speeches. Okay? For you, you're like going to a concert, like hearing nice songs. That's nice voice, we like you're saying. This when we say, they hear what you're saying, they don't keep it. Okay? But for all, and when your prophecies come true, how bad it is, then they'll know that you are a Navi. But you see, you see all these, he's a really good speaker, Yechezkel. All these mashals, he gets really good attention. But this is a great example of his of Yechezkel. Again, this is 33 already, right? This will lead into the Nechama later on. Now, I want to bring one thing from this one slogan from the beginning of the parents ate sour grapes and we spit them out. We spit them out. Yirmiyahu quotes the exact same thing in chapter 31. I want you to see it because it affects, you understand something from davening. It's a nice summary of this whole theme of how, even though they don't quote each other, they don't mention each other, obviously they know each other, and how they're sort of a tag team. So in chapter 31 in Yirmiyahu, you know it well because it's haftarah for the second day of Rosh Hashanah. Remember, Kol Barama Nishma, Nechi Bechi Tamurim, Kol Mar Sham Kol Bab Ben Nishma. This one's famous, right? Okay, this we all know this haftarah beautifully. Now, okay, okay. Now after this part's over, okay. Hine Yabim Baim, the Rabbi says, I'll bring you back one day. You're going to exile, you'll come back. Okay, and just like it went out of my way to destroy you, I'm going to go out of my way to bring you back. That was the topic we saw last week, also relating to Purim in Yeshivat Zion. Okay. B'yamim ha'hema, when I bring you back, lo yomru od avut ochlu bosar v'shnim b'yim tikena. Right? No more slogans like they said before. Right? Ki ish b'avono yamut, kol adam ochel bosar tikena shinav. You get what you deserve. People are complaining that the ways of God are unfair. When you come back, you'll see everyone got what they deserve. People won't use that mashal anymore. They won't. Those slogans will be gone. Now, I think, I'm not sure, but this is my hunch. The Rasha and the Haggadah, what do? He has an attitude problem, doesn't he? Remember, Mazot Lachem. The Rasha has an attitude problem. In the Haggadah, we don't answer the question, we answer the child. So remember, the four sons is a lesson in preferential education. When a child asks a question, answer the child, not the son, and understand where he's coming from. So the Rasha has an attitude problem. Hey, what's this to you? And then remember, tell him, if you were there, people like you wouldn't have been saved. So what do we say to the Rasha? Afata haket shinav. Remember haket shinav? Which doesn't sound like smack him in the face. But the word lahakot et shinayim, okay? Shibishinei banim tikena. We use this phrase for the Rasha in Haggadah. I'm almost sure Chazal built it on here. Makes sense? Because they have an attitude problem, don't they? What's their attitude? The ways of God isn't fair. We don't like what God's doing. So ataket shinav, I think, is coming from here. Ki im ish b'avono yamut v'chol dam achabot tikena shinav. Then the big thing. Then ready for your. Is it Sunday today? I can say this on Sunday. Hinei yamim b'im Hashem v'charti beit Yisrael brit Yehuda brit chadasha. No, that doesn't mean a New Testament. It means a renewed covenant. Okay, that was the one joke for the day. Okay, but not like the brit that they came out of Egypt that broke. Okay, they broke my brit. Okay, and I had to punish them for that. They have a life. The Torah will be in their midst. Remember the theme of covenant again. They'll be my nation. I'll be your God. They'll be my nation. They won't teach each other anymore. Israel v'shechid more to know God. I'll forgive them for their sins. I'm starting a new religion. I'm sorry. We'll forgive them for their sins. The Christians have a big deal with this one, but you'll see that they're quoting from the wrong parak. You'll see how it ends. But he's saying, knowing God, we did that here in Yirmiyahu. Knowing God in Yirmiyahu was to do tzedek u'mishpat. We proved. Now, God says as follows: God who made the sun and light, etc., and the laws of nature, laws of astronomy, okay, and the seas, etc., okay. Just like those laws of nature aren't going to change, my covenant with you will never change. That's why this is already what the Christians say. We're in we hold Yirmiyahu saying we're in a Catholic marriage. If you understand my analogy, that God's brit with us can never be broken. So they don't quote this part, and they only quote this one. They don't quote this part. Okay. Just like the laws of nature aren't going to change, that's the brit after the flood. My brit with Am Yisrael will never change. it might not be perfect. You might be sleeping on the couch, but you're always my people, and there's always a chance of recovery. It's never over. Never dry bones, as we'll see later in Yechezkel. Okay? Okay, so it's just like, you can't measure the heavens. I'll never give up on my people of Israel. Okay? Okay? And one day, the city will be rebuilt. We'll rebuild Yerushalayim, etc. They'll build Malchamal and Mamila, etc. And rebuild the walls of Yerushalayim, etc. Okay? And basically it gives a thing that Jerusalem will be a thing, and hopefully it won't be destroyed again. Unfortunately, we came back and it was destroyed, but Yirmiyahu will always remains eternal. So that's but you get Yirmiyahu in the same thing, saying people won't be saying the ways of God are unfair. But the main thing to make that work, we have to know God, which Yirmiyahu explained was living a life of tzedek and mishpat. So again, the main message of Yirmiyahu and Yechezkel is again, Arlene asked a good question about the individual punishment you can see all through Chumash. It's not the main theme of Chumash. The main theme is national punishment and reward, but there's plenty of examples of people being punished for their deeds. Look at Pharaoh, etc. And what they did wrong.
But the simple understanding of Pokei Avon Avot Abanim is that there is intergenerational punishment, which
that was the first luchot, and afterwards in the second luchot, God can put up punishment for up to 4 generations. We don't do that, but God can do that. When God said Pokei Avon Avot Abanim, means you need to know if you do something wrong, there's implications for your children. I'll give you the way I explain it to my students. If you're driving in the car by yourself and the light turns yellow, right? What they call it, there's hammer down. You speed up and get through the light. Now, if you're driving in the car with your children in the back seat, what are you going to do? You'll slow down. Kal v'chomer if your wife's in the car. Now, what I'm getting at is if you're doing something and the person being punished would be you, okay, when you're doing something and you know the consequence of your actions will affect other people and your children and grandchildren, you think twice. So, and when God warns us in the 10 Commandments, it's like a scare tactic. You need to know you do something wrong now, you'll be punished. You, your children, your grandchildren. It's a very harsh warning of God it's called midat hadin. But that's in the original covenant. God wants to make sure you're going to listen, and sometimes use what we call scare tactics. Every parent tries it. Again,
so it's not vicarious atonement then?
No, it's what do you call it? It's saying it's in order to make sure you don't sin, because that happens in life. You do things, and other people pay the consequences of it. Now, we learned in Parshat Kitetse, "Lo imtu avat habanim, habanim imtu avot." That's a pasuk in chapter 24 in Devarim, right after remember God did to Miriam and stuff. Right before.
We also want zechut avot. So isn't it the flip side of zechut avot?
Again, God can be forgiving. He can also be din. If God goes midat hadin, very few people won't be caught with something. You can put anybody in jail. Even the prime minister, you can find something on him and put him in jail if you have a good lawyer. If you use midat hadin, you can put anyone in jail. But but God can be forgiving. Knowing God can be forgiving is the reason why it motivates people to do tshuva. The second I know I did something wrong, there's no room for tshuva, then you give up. So that's why they're saying, no matter how bad you are, you can always do tshuva. No matter how good you are, you can always go wrong again. That's what Yirmiyahu and Yechezkel are both screaming, not only on the national level, also on the individual level. Because the nation is a big group of basically a bunch of individuals together. And then there's effective other people in leadership. But God's saying, now, in Midat Rachamim that we read this week, it's not Pokei Avon Avot L'Sonai, like in the verse 1. It's just Pokei Avon Avot Bnei Banim, and stops. So Chazal understand, the first time God will punish you and your great-grandchildren, etc. In the second one, God's saying God can put up punishment up to 4 generations. I mean, you might do something wrong. He might not punish your family until 4 generations do the same thing wrong. Now, he might punish you, but he might hold off your punishment and see if your kids do tshuva. He may put off their punishment. It's a nice way of saying there's always room for tshuva, which is the whole idea of Midot Rachamim, which is a much more dynamic relationship with God. But the world we're living in is a world of tshuva. Doesn't mean you can. Doesn't mean He will forgive, means you can forgive. That's what Yirmiyahu talks about all the time. Right, so that's our little I just want to show you today, when you go through Yechezkel, back here, but especially Yechezkel, so many parables, right? And so many mashalim, and you hear slogans, you hear what he's dealing with. Remember, make love, not war. That's the 60s, pretty much. And that led to lots of wars 2 decades later when you don't want to fight evil. What do you call it? Give me other slogans. I'm a netzach lo mefached. Okay? Therefore, go to war no matter what. It's no fear. Again, there's something behind it. But people use slogans that sometimes reflect what they feel inside. And sometimes sometimes very short slogans reflect a certain understanding people have about the relationship with God, which sometimes are good, sometimes they're bad. But they're good indicators of what the people were feeling. So we see from Yechezkel's rebuke, you hear the slogans that people were saying, that he has to counter them. But now he's a really good, his mashals are really, really good. He gets people's attention. We can talk about, chapter 16 was totally X-rated. Given a word like that, people come to shul every week. They won't listen, but they want to hear, how we get away with that at the Seder. That's what do you call it? Lucky the kids don't understand Hebrew when we read those psukim. Anyway, so we'll stop here this week. That's how I want to share with you those psukim in Yechezkel. Next week, I'll do Nivot of Damim, review them a little bit and why they're there and why they're different than Yirmiyahu, and then why he talks about the temple at the end of the book and what that's about. Whether it's the third temple, the fourth temple, or a thematic temple later on. Okay, next week we'll stay with American time for next week as well. Okay.
Great.
Okay, Shabbat Tov, and we should hear no more sirens like the Noat Tzofeh. We should be deserving of a quiet week, and we should finish the job off, as they say.
Amen.
Okay, thanks.
Amen, amen,
Thank you
amen.
very much.
Bye-bye.